Merry Christmas. What a beautiful occasion. Family, friends, an occasion to celebrate, an occasion to be with people we love, an occasion to give to those who are less fortunate than us, to give to family, to receive from family. Wow. For those who find themselves alone, a time of struggle, a time of loneliness, and a time of grief as well. Maybe you've lost someone you love, and it's a difficult time for you. And I just acknowledge you right now, and also I just want to encourage you, those who are celebrating, those who are alone, those who are struggling, to encourage you to think about this joyous occasion, because no matter what your circumstance is, this is still a reason to celebrate, to rejoice, because Jesus is truly among us. He's truly with us, and we celebrate this occasion. Now, he was born 2,000 years ago, I give you that, that's right, but we still have reason to celebrate the birthday of Jesus, because that birthday changed our lives forever, changed humanity forever, but also changed our eternity forever. Now, what difference does Christmas make? What difference does this celebration make in our eternity? Well, if it wasn't for this day, if it wasn't for this occasion, you would not have the possibility of living forever. You would not have the possibility of living life to the full. Jesus came to become one of us so that we could understand the heart, the mind, the will of God. Throughout millennia, all through the Old Testament, even before the Old Testament was written, humanity has been seeking the heart and the mind of God. God, where are you? God, who are you? God, what are you? And they tried in the Old Testament to figure out who God was. And they got glimpses of who God was through the words of the prophets. And they got to understand that God was a little bit of this and a little bit of this. But humanity creeps in, and all of a sudden they start to lose who God really was. They started to misinterpret who God really was. Yes, God was a God who wanted to bless them with land, but eventually people became greedy about the land, and so started to kill one another to acquire land, and they interpreted that as God's blessing and God's power with them. Now, throughout history, eventually, we started to get more and more of an understanding of who God was, but we never got it quite right. We never, as human beings, understood who God was. So what does God do? God comes and says, hey, you've heard about me, you've heard messages about me, but now I want to show you who I am. I want to demonstrate who I am, what I do, so that you can do what I do, that you might know my heart, understand my heart. There's a story of this little boy who goes out into a field. And as he goes out into this field, he sees a lot of ants. And as he looks at the ants crawling all over the place, he notices a pattern, and these ants are crawling towards a cliff, and they're walking towards this cliff edge, and eventually he looks towards the cliff edge and sees them crawling down to their death into this ocean. Now, they don't realize they're doing it. There's a lot of celebration at the beginning of this congregation of ants, and they're having a good time, but they follow this crowd. They're just following one after the other and walking off this cliff and to their death. And this little boy is observing it from on top and thinking, what's going on here? Why are these ants doing this? Can't they see that they're falling to their death? And so what does he do? He gets his hand and he places it in front of the ants, and he tries to stop them from falling off the cliff, but they crawl around his hand. He puts his foot in the way, and they crawl over his foot, and they continue to their death. Eventually, he gives up. He thinks, there's no way I can communicate with them. But he remembers that he has this superpower. He has this superpower to become an ant. And so he flicks his finger, and he becomes a little ant. And now this human being who could see all things becomes this little ant from a little perspective, but he has this deep understanding of perspective of the way things should be. And so he starts all of a sudden to speak ant, and he starts to talk to the other ants and say, hey guys, you're falling off this cliff. Get away from this queue of people falling down. If you follow that direction, you're going to fall to your death. And some listen to him. Some congregate around him and go the other way. But many don't. Many just keep walking. Many just keep walking to their death and falling off the cliff. And in fact, he continues to shout and tell people, guys, please stop. You're going to die. Come back to this path, because that path is leading to death. And they get fed up of him. And so eventually, what do? As the gospel today says, they get him and they tie him up and they kill him. Because he's standing in the way, he's bothering them. Now, this is sort of the Christmas and the Easter story in one. That Jesus, God, became one of us to show us the way to life. We were on a path to death through our sin, through our selfishness, through our pride. And God comes into this world and says, hey, that's not the path to go. This is the way to go. But many of us today don't listen because we think we know best and we stay on this path towards death. Christmas is that reminder to us to come back to Jesus. That Jesus is the voice telling us, showing us, guiding us to the heart of the Father. What a joyful occasion. We have no excuse now because of Christmas. Heaven is almost too easy with the graces that God gives us. We have no excuse to go to hell because God has given us His voice, His guidance. Yes, it takes a lot of sacrifice. Yes, it takes a lot of pain to say yes to Jesus. But once we do, wow, we can live life to the full, life in abundance, because Jesus is with us. This is the celebration of Christmas, that we can know the heart, the mind, and the will of God. Here's an exercise for you to do today, maybe with your families. Some of you have a crib at home. Some of you might be able to visit a church. Some of you might even be able to take up an image of the baby Jesus. And I want you to do this, if you would. Just get baby Jesus, this image of Jesus, this figure of Jesus, this statue of Jesus, this crib, and go and sit there. Sit there with Mary and Joseph, and just think of this occasion that Jesus, the God who saw all the chaos of the world, decided to become one of us. But in order to do that, He had to become so vulnerable, a baby, a human being, so vulnerable. But that's what love is. Love is vulnerability. Without vulnerability, there's no love. And I just want you to sit with that vulnerability and just thank Jesus for being born today, for showing us the way to the heart, the mind, and the will of the Father.